Hi, this is Phil Nevin with the San Francisco Giants. You're listening to Out of Left Field with the Grilling Truth.
Hey guys, welcome back to Out of Left Field. Graham and Chris back here with you again. Another fun-filled week of baseball. Some good, some bad, a little bit of ugly. And let's go ahead and put the ball. Actually, you know what? I'm going to call time on this real quick, guys. Normally, we get right into it, have maybe a few minutes of fun banter, put the ball into play, and we get into the show. But something that Chris and I have told you in the past, especially when we had Adnan Verk on the show, is that sometimes in life things are bigger than just the game of baseball. For those of you who don't know, Chris is a public school teacher in the state of Arizona. At times he has mentioned where because he was a high school baseball coach, but where he is a teacher is not really relevant to this conversation. What is relevant to the conversation is the choice that was unfortunately forced upon him and thousands, tens of thousands of other educators because of choices that their state board of education has made that has put them in a very difficult position as educators of youth. I give Chris a hard time a lot. He gives it back. It's part of what makes this show great. But I want to take a moment, and we aren't asking for monetary donations. We aren't trying to elicit anything from you all other than just a moment of thought. Thought provocation, I think, is of all the things, probably the best that Chris would ask for based on the things that they have been dealt. But I want to take a moment and open the floor, Chris, and really just allow you to explain to our listeners who have been great to our show for a almost 2 years now, what is actually happening in your state, and really let people understand the mindset of educators maybe beyond what they may be thinking it is based off of what they may have read or heard in the news.
Well, I appreciate it. So what's going on in a nutshell is that since the recession of 2008, the Arizona State Legislature has cut nearly $2.2 billion in funding from Arizona state schools. Our teachers are the lowest paid teachers in the United States. Our support staff, our paraeducators, our counselors are the lowest paid in their groups in the United States. We spend less per pupil on education than 47 other states, and we have more students than the three that than some of the states that we spend less money than per pupil. Our counselors are in crisis. We're running at a counselor ratio of 940 plus to 1. The national average is 450 to 1. The recommended is 250 to 1. And for 10 years, we have tried and first asked and then begged and then pleaded for the Arizona State Legislature to stop cutting money from education, to pay teachers, to pay paraprofessionals, to pay support staff, and to really let us educate Arizona's children and have the money to do so. And year after year, for the last 10 years, they've denied us that ability. So we've decided as a group, as a community of educators, that enough is enough and that something has to change. And so based on support from teachers in Arizona and community members in Arizona, the Arizona Educators Association has decided that Thursday, April 26th, we will begin what may very well be an extended walkout that will shut down districts all over the state of Arizona until the legislature listens to the demands of the Red for Ed movement. That is the Arizona Educators United movement in Arizona, which demands an immediate 20% increase in teacher pay, which will still put us between $5,000 and $7,000 below the national average.
But the one thing I want everyone to understand is the primary reason for the choice that you all have been forced to make, while teacher pay may be the first thing we mention, and likely is the first thing mentioned because it is the first thing that comes to mind. It is not the primary reason for the choice you all have decided to make as a teachers union.
No. The primary reason, our primary request is that the Arizona State Legislature immediately fund schools back to 2008 levels, which we are now currently operating at around $2.2 billion under 2008 levels of funding.
To keep people in mind, as Chris and I have talked, he is trying to teach, and I understand, yes, maybe not, you think not a lot has changed, but he is teaching an American history, or is it American or world?
World history.
World history with a book that is 14 years old. Now, granted, we all assume it's history, it's things in the past. There's no future in the past. Things are as they are. But as curriculum changes, as things, happen in the world, and they want to add certain things and take other things out to give kids a more well-rounded thought process of what this world is. History is as recent as the last 5-10 years because of catastrophic world events that, while most of us may have dealt with, the majority, if not all, of Chris's students were not alive when 2001 happened on September 11th, or if they were 1 year old, maybe 2, and don't remember it. 14 years old is a very long time. Yeah.
And so our primary goal is to get funded back to 2008 levels. We're currently, like I said, running over $2 billion under those levels. But one of the things that I also want people to keep in mind when we say we want a 20% increase in teacher pay is what we mean when we say teacher, and how that differs from what the Arizona State Legislature means when they say teacher. When we say teacher, we mean teachers, support staff, counselors, paraprofessionals, anyone who deals or interacts with children on an everyday basis, educators.
Which is 2/3 of the adults in your household, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. My mother-in-law is a paraprofessional. She's a classroom aide. The offer from our governor of an immediate 10% raise for teachers and 20% by 2020 disincludes counselors, teacher aides, classroom aides, and all of the other hourly professionals, bus drivers, janitors, food service professionals. All of the other people who keep the food or keep the school running on a daily basis are disincluded from that pay increase. And many of them are making at or just above minimum wage. And so we can't continue to try to work within a broken system. We are demanding that the legislation find a revenue stream or create a revenue stream that is sustainable, that can fix the broken education system in the state of Arizona, which has become one of the worst in the nation, simply because we can't keep quality teachers in this state because they can move next door to California and make $25,000 a year more. They can move next door to Colorado and make $10,000 a year more. They can move next door to New Mexico and make $7,000 to $10,000 a year more than they can make in the state of Arizona. And it's time for a change. And we are not going to stand down from this. We're not going to back down from this. We are going to fight this until the legislature understands that we're serious. And so, it's a terrifying time for me. I just bought a house, and now I'm staring down the face of a walkout that's going to put me outside of that's going to put my paycheck on hold for I don't know how long.
Right. Again, guys, we appreciate you always. This is a chance for us to talk to you. I think real, as best we can say. It's a real talk. Those of you that are adults understand, I'm sure, very much what Chris is going through as a husband, as a father, as a provider. Those of you who are younger, we hope that you never have to deal with something like this. But this is real world concerns, and our biggest hope is that, again, we're not trying to tell you what to think, but we want to give you the opportunity to understand from someone who is deep in this system as an educator what is happening and why it is happening beyond what you might read in the news. So,
and the only thing that I ask, again, like I said, there is a statewide GoFundMe for educators who are going to be participating in the walkout. That's not what I'm looking for. I'm really hoping that people in the state are going to step up and donate to that GoFundMe. Parents and family members and community members. All I'm asking is if you could just find either on Twitter or Instagram or even Facebook the hashtag Red4Ed, REDFORED, and just leave a quick note of support, or tweet, post, or Instagram something with the hashtag Red4Ed with a quick note of support.
So again, guys, keep in mind that, as Chris mentioned, this is not the primary focus of this is not teacher pay. Yes, it is a piece, but it is a piece solely, at least the majority is a piece for that state because of how far behind they are from the majority of the nation. But the focus that Chris has told me, at least multiple times this week, is all about funding for classrooms, for the kids, for them to understand that the choice they're making, while it puts those kids, those seniors especially, at a frustrated disadvantage because of what it might do to their ability to graduate, at what was the expected time, is for the betterment of the youth in his community and in that state. So again, we're not asking for money. We're just asking for, understanding, for knowledge, for support of what those teachers are doing and making a decision that is very difficult. Without much easy way to transition, let's go ahead and put the ball in play and move. We'll move more towards my area of the country, Chris, in a division that is really ripe within where I'm living. Obviously, between the Braves, I would say the Marlins, but the Braves, and talk about a team who right now sits on top of that National League East division by a game and a half, and that is the New York Metropolitans. We discussed this last week. We discussed it a couple of weeks ago as to what was going to happen with Matt Harvey if he was pitching well and they were on top of the division. Well, luckily, that decision never really became much of a problem, because while the Mets are on top of the division, Matt Harvey is pitched like crap.
That's probably the biggest understatement that you're going to make this entire show.
It's still a family show. That's the main idea. So I still had to keep it as friendly as possible.
How about 6 innings, 8 hits, 6 runs versus the Braves in his last start? After that last start, Mickey Callaway basically decides, hey, you know what? This is my team, and we're going to do what's best for my team. And puts Matt Harvey, officially moves Matt Harvey into the bullpen, does that Saturday. obviously Matt Harvey's angry. Quote, I'm a starting pitcher. I'm, quote, pissed off and motivated. But it's really going to be up to Matt Harvey at this point to prove that being pissed off and motivated is going to be enough to put him in a position to get back into that rotation.
I'm tired of the damn lip service.
If I'm Mickey Callaway, I'm not giving him an opportunity.
No, it's all lip service. It's jib jab. It's, man, I'm really motivated. I'm pissed off. I want to be a starter. You know what? You haven't proved a damn thing. You had a 2.27 ERA in 2013, 2.71 in 15 when you came back from Tommy John surgery with a whip just over 1. Since then, this is from 16 to 18, okay? And 17 games, 19 games, and then 4 games this year. An ERA of 4.86 in 2016, 6.7 in 2017, and an even 6 this year. This year alone, he has a whip of 1.429, giving up 11 hits per 9 innings.
He's given up 26 hits, 14 runs, and 4 long balls in his 21 innings. That's 21 innings across 4 games.
Right. So we're looking at just over, 5.1 innings per start. No quality starts from him. 14 earned runs, as you said, 17 strikeouts. But, I mean, a wild pitch. He's faced 94 batters in 4 games. 94 batters in 4 games, Chris.
Yeah. I think this was a long time coming. I really don't understand how Matt Harvey had a starting spot in the rotation at the end of spring training this year anyway. They have plenty of pitchers in the pipeline, guys that have covered for guys like Thor and Harvey himself when he was injured, who came up and were at least able to put passable numbers up. Definitely better than what Matt Harvey himself has been putting up. I don't see how, after what has gone on the last few seasons, especially after Harvey has repeatedly denied the existence of injuries that were obviously plaguing him, why he even had a spot in this rotation anyway. But you know what? This early in the year, I guess sooner rather than later, and now is better than never.
Yeah, and you mentioned it. I mean, and that was, one of the big things that we discussed. I mean, Matt Harvey was the face of our first show. Remember that?
Yeah.
The first show was What's Wrong with Matt Harvey? And it kind of became a continuous conversation. And, it makes me wonder, and I'm not, this is all just me spitballing here, but the way Matt Harvey has continually concealed ailments, discomfort, pain, even injuries at some point. We saw Syndergaard do the same thing. When both Syndergaard and DeGrom came up, Harvey was in his heyday. It was the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight owned Gotham. And it makes me wonder just how much of the crap that he pulled rubbed off on them, which is why we saw Syndergaard last year come out with the line of, quote, "I know my own body."
Right before a serious pectoral issue put him out for the rest of the season.
Exactly. Harvey has not been the same since Tommy John. And I've said this before. I've heard Mark Mulder say it. He said it when I've talked to him, that, 80% of guys come back well from Tommy John and they recover and they pitch okay. Guys like Carter Capps, guys like Matt Harvey, there has to be a 20%. Mark Mulder was one of those 20%ers. Matt Harvey is one of those 20%ers. And you know what? We discussed it last week, Chris, when we talked about Alex Cora and Aaron Boone in reference to the brawl in Beantown between those two ball clubs, that their ability to get involved, to be vocal, to be out there with their ball clubs in a benches clearing incident that didn't lead to the managers being suspended, but they're there, they're partaking, they understand what it is because they played for those ball clubs, was a big deal for those two new skippers to ingratiate themselves and kind of be accepted into that new clubhouse, because you have players who are there now, and now these are two guys who, yes, they played the game, but they've been removed from being on the field day in, day out for a while. Mickey Callaway saying, this is my damn team, I'm going to do what the hell I want, and Matt Harvey is not going to be in my starting rotation, to me is him taking ownership of that new ball club after coming over from Cleveland. And it makes me curious, what would Terry Collins have done if the Mets hadn't removed him from the dugout and moved him upstairs into the front office as an advisor role for that ball club?
To be honest, I think that if Collins was still in the dugout, and this is just pure speculation, but if Collins was still in the dugout, in my opinion, we would still have Matt Harvey in the rotation. And I think that it might get to the point of your Matt Cains and your Tim Lincecums, who go way too far, way too long in the starting rotation, way too many opportunities before someone says, hey, you know what? Let's put him in the bullpen and give him some extra reps and some extra time in there, because they're not doing anything for us as starters. So I don't think he would have made that choice. I don't think that Collins would have made that choice the way that Callaway was able to make that choice almost immediately.
And on the flip side, I get Harvey hates it. But Mickey Callaway said, and this was shared by Anthony DeComo of MLB.com. It was a tweet of Callaway discussing this. And he said, quote, I think he's motivated to go out there and show everyone that he can start again at some point. And Dave and I are going to take the approach that we're going to help him do everything we can to help him do that. End quote. That, to me, it's a big deal, because Mickey Callaway, guys, let's not forget, was a huge piece of why the Cleveland Indians were so dominant the last 2 years. He was the pitching coach for Terry Francona, was absolutely fantastic. And it's one of those things that Callaway also says, quote, he has seen players go to the bullpen and, quote, come out of it better than they were before, close quote. Guys like Carlos Carrasco, who for the Indians went from starter to the pen and back to the rotation. So, yes, it is possible to see a guy go from being a starter to the bullpen and out, a la John Smoltz. I am not in any way saying that Matt Harvey is going to be a John Smoltz type of case, but if you're going to have to move a pitcher who had such a wide-ranging, positive kind of, I think you could even say at some point, Chris, he was the most, I don't want to say drama-filled, but I guess engaging. He was a pitcher that made you want to watch for a good chunk of time in 2012 and 2013. I know you and I would talk about him quite a bit. So if you have to have a new manager to make this decision and try and get the best out of it, I think Mickey Callaway might be the best option, because, like I said, we've seen what he can do with the Indians. We saw the Carrasco move, and that is a guy who certainly can, if it's possible, put Matt Harvey back on the road to being a long-term starter for that ball club and actually be proficient at his job.
So the Mets have decided that their injured free agent Jason Vargas is going to be returning from the DL, and he will occupy Harvey's spot in the rotation. Now, you remember Vargas missed time due to a broken hand.
After a hell of a first half last year.
But he is back and says he is ready to go. So I'll be interested to see what Jason Vargas does coming off of this hand injury that basically has sidelined him to this point. But at this point, you got to think anything you get from Vargas is going to be better than what you got from Matt Harvey.
Yeah, and if I understand Matt Harvey being, saying, man, I'm motivated, and that's good. But here's what I will tell you. And Chris, this goes, beyond – I mean, this goes beyond your knowledge as a baseball coach. This goes to the military, okay? When your feet are to the fire, when the motivation is put before you and you still can't perform to the level that is expected of you, at some point, you just don't have it. You're out of your league. You don't have what is necessary to do your job. To me, at this point, if Matt Harvey coming into a free agent year and being absolutely embarrassed and finally demoted to the bullpen can't figure something out, he's going to have a very hard time, I think, trying to find a big league home, a la Jose Bautista, who we know this week just signed with the Atlanta Braves as a third baseman in the minor leagues.
You know what? I know I said this off the air, and you said I was being a little bit I think shots fired was the phrase that you used.
Fire for effect, baby.
But I am so sick and tired of Jose Bautista. I am done discussing Jose Bautista. I hope Jose Bautista plays out the rest of his career at third base for whatever crappy AAA team the Braves put him on, or crappy minor league team the Braves put him on. And I hope that Tim Tebow makes it to the major leagues before Jose Bautista makes it back.
Now, see, I understand because of our off-air discussions just how bitter that has to taste coming out of your mouth.
I don't like the fact that Tim Tebow plays baseball. I don't think I've made that. I don't think I've hidden that from our listeners at all.
Well, all right. So tangent time. Timeout. Okay. Hands are up. Ball's out of play.
There's a debit card in your hand for some reason.
There was. It's not for – never mind. So I don't know if you knew this. There is a new – do what?
You are on the internet.
I am. Knock it off. I don't know if you have heard about this new football league that is being formed called the Alliance of American Football.
Right.
It's basically being done as an answer to Vince McMahon's attempt to bring back the XFL, and it's being done by Dick Ebersol's son Charlie. And Dick Ebersol and Vince McMahon were the two kind of brainchilds behind the XFL and NBC back in,
2020.
Yeah,
1999 to 2001, 2002?
Something like that.
I don't know.
Anyway, Steve Spurrier, the head ball coach, Hall of Fame head ball coach from Florida, Heisman Trophy winner, he has been selected as the new head ball coach of the Florida team, the Orlando team. Don't have a damn clue what the name's going to be. He did, however, say in a press conference that Tim Tebow has a number 15 jersey waiting on him if he so desires to come back and play football. I will tell you this, and I say this with all sincerity. If Tim Tebow were to make his choice and go back to football, if I was a general manager of that team, I would have the biggest question marks about his character. Not his character, but more about his desire and his commitment.
Those are character traits. So yes, about his character.
Yeah. About how committed are you really to doing this? Because if you're going to play this in the, it's supposed to be kind of a spring, type league away from the NFL season. What are you going to do? Are you going to play football in the spring and then go play baseball halfway through the year and then go cover the SEC? Like, pick one. So that's my tangent. I didn't know if you had heard that, but that came out this week when when Spurrier had his press conference that there was a quote saying Tebow had a jersey awaiting him. I found that quite interesting.
I hadn't heard that, but I'll be honest. If Tim Tebow makes that decision and does decide he wants to go play football for the AAF,
good riddance.
Well, good riddance. But if I'm the Mets, I want my $1 million back.
Yeah, that and also Adidas, because they paid him what $2 or $3 million. I mean, it'll be interesting. And we've heard talks that Tebow is on the right road to making the big leagues. Guy's barely hitting over 200. We got a long way to go before that happens.
Promoted to Double-A, hits a bomb in his first at bat, and then does exactly what Giancarlo Stanton has done, and that is stink the place up since.
I'm not going to put Tebow quite in the same boat. Not going to lie. Stanton has been, to me, just a little bit worse. On the same side of stinking the place up, and not by any fault of his own, Chase Field had its collective breath taken out of the place through the roof after it was announced that Taijuan Walker will need to have Tommy John surgery due to a partial tear of his UCL in the right elbow. Obviously going to be out through the remainder of this season. Likely will not be back until, let's just shoot for June next year. A huge loss for the Diamondbacks. Had a 3.49 ERA, 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings last season. Obviously having Greinke, Robbie Ray, you have Corbin, you have Godley. Man, Taijuan Walker is a guy who, even this year, a 3.46 ERA through 3 games, pitched in 13 innings, 5 earned runs, a whip of 1.5, which, again, 1.5 is, it's a decent jump from where he has been, which is pretty, I think, significant. We can assume that, hey, when you're having discomfort in your elbow, that's going to affect the way you're pitching, and you're probably going to start putting some baseballs in places that you don't want to. You're close to that ball club. You were there a lot last year. You and I were there for 3 games last year, one with your beautiful wife. We had a great time. This is a big loss for that ball club.
It hurts, no doubt about it. The interesting thing is that they've been rocking and rolling without him. His absence hasn't really been felt as far as the win-loss column is concerned at this point. I'm sure that will change as we go through the year. They have decided that they're going to bring up
Is it Matt Koch, Matt Cook?
Matt Koch to fill
Koch. Not really sure which pronunciation out of the 3 he's going with there.
Right, Matt Koch is going to come up and fill his slot. Realistically,
we have no clue what we're getting.
What they're going to do is they're going to put him, or they're going to put Taylor Clark or Chris Medlin, or maybe even Braden Shipley, who's done some good work for them in the past, in that spot, possibly in a fluid sort of way, until Shelby Miller is healthy enough from his Tommy John last year to come back and slide into that spot. And I think that when that happens, the depth will get a little bit better. But they've been running a 4-man group, and I think that if what we've seen is any indication, and at least through the first probably third of this season, first half of this season, they're going to be all right. But as the season grinds on, as the 162 games or the games completed gets higher and the games remaining gets lower, we're going to see the loss of Taijuan Walker become more and more of a major issue for this team.
And it has been such an odd season this year as it relates to rotations. We see teams going with 6. We see teams going with 4. I honestly, I don't remember, especially not in the last 2 years, but even as it relates to the last hell, 10 years you and I have known each other, that we have seen this much almost discombobulation throughout the big leagues into what teams want to do as far as setting up the rotation. I'm not dogging it by any stretch because it's working for different teams. It's just so weird to see.
I'll be honest, I'm a fan of a 6-man rotation. I think that if you have 6 strong pitchers like that you feel like getting your ace out there every 6 days instead of every 5 still offers you the same opportunity to win a high percentage of games, then absolutely let those guys let their arms rest. Let them get an extra day. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Here's where you're going to screw some of your aces, though, is with the 6-man rotation. Because if it comes down at Cy Young time to a guy who played every 6 days and has 170 innings, and a guy who played every 5 days and has 210 innings, right, and their numbers are similar, ERA, strikeouts, those types of numbers are similar.
24 games compared to 28, 29,
right,
maybe 30.
You're going to start taking those guys out of the running for those postseason awards just based on the fact that they just didn't play as much.
Right. It would take a wholesale change, I think, right, across major leagues. But yeah, you're right about Cook or Koch or Koch. A guy who had, he had an infinite, an infinite ERA last year because he gave up 3 earned runs, never gotten out. He's sitting at 1.13 this year in 8 relief innings pitched. He's played in 2 games. I think you mentioned it. The question I will think is Shelby Miller, and I believe that's who you said. I got cut off there for a moment, but I mean, Shelby Miller is a guy who they traded for. They traded Dansby Swanson, right, I believe Ender Inciarte. Quite a decent chunk of players from Arizona were traded for Miller, and he has just absolutely failed to produce anything.
Well,
so hopefully he went down to fill that spot.
Remember, he went down in May of last year.
Exactly.
So he should be back any time now. It's been almost a year since his Tommy John surgery. So we're getting back to the place where to the time where he should be throwing bullpens and right, getting comfortable to getting ready to come back. We'll see when that happens, but I'd like to see Shelby Miller come back and come back with some fire in that arm of his.
And it might be, as we just mentioned, it could be one of those moments where, hey, maybe having, Cook and Miller and actually run a 6-man until you can figure out which of those two fits your rotation the best might be the best shot for Torey Lovullo. Try and at least get these guys somewhat deep and be able to kind of finagle and play with your bullpen arms just a little bit.
Well, and exactly what we're going to talk about here in just a second. You got to think that whatever Tony Lovullo is going to do is going to be the right decision for this team because, let's face it, the Diamondbacks are still on top of a division that we didn't think the Diamondbacks would be on top of for more than the day that they were alphabetically on top.
Exactly. Right. And I think you mentioned that. Let's go ahead and move in to our regular season rankings. Guys, something else we're going to start stepping up on here in the next week or so. We're going to start getting our weekly power rankings, our top 5, bottom 3. Shamelessly, yes, we're stealing it from whichever show you've probably heard. But we will give you our top 5 teams and bottom 3 teams of the week. And then every month we will be collaborating with Timothy Farmer. You remember him from being on the show as our guest co-host a couple of weeks ago with View from the Mezzanine at View Mezzanine on Twitter. Of course, you can always find us at OO Left Field, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham as well, Twitter and Facebook respectively there. But we will be collaborating with Tim on a monthly power rankings 1 through 30 of all big league ball clubs. Let's take a look around the big leagues. If you haven't heard, the Boston Red Sox are good.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
I thought it was maybe something more complex than that, but it's good to know that it's something just as simple as they're a good team.
Simple, easy. We keep it easy for public consumption here. My favorite statistic of the day, though, is that the Boston Red Sox have more grand slams as a team than 3 Major League Ball clubs do wins this year. The Red Sox have 5 team grand salamis. The White Sox and the Royals have 4 wins, and the Reds have 3. Don't worry. The Reds will be mentioned quite a bit coming up here on Out of Left Field.
If this adds any to your favorite statistic of the day, that ties the Marlins' number of wins, by the way.
Which really makes me feel bad for the Reds. They're actually playing worse than the Marlins. Like that's just kind of disheartening.
Wait. Do you feel bad for the Reds because they're playing worse than the Marlins, or for the Yankees because the Marlins beat them 7-0?
Both. Yes.
Yes.
And I think I mentioned this to you. I can't remember if it was last week or off air. But the Marlins AA affiliate in Jacksonville had their home opener, I don't know, a week or so ago, maybe a little bit less. And they actually drew more fans for the AA home opener than the big club did to a Major League Ball game the same day.
I think
I'm going to bring my inner drill sergeant Murphy. Way to go, guy!
Good job.
Nice job. Yes, sir.
Good job. Way to go.
Wrapping up through the AL East, the Blue Jays, they're no joke, guys. I mean, we're all kind of sitting here wondering how the hell are they pulling it off. They got a good offense. Marcus Stroman leading that team. They're 13-7. I mean, yes, 4.5 games back, but you know what? Right now, the AL East looks like the NL West did last year. Granted, only 2 teams. The Yankees are 10-9. If they can start to get things figured the hell out, Giancarlo Stanton has been moved down to the 4 spot. You and I both think, Chris, he might need to get moved down further so he can get things figured out. The Rays and the Orioles both sitting below 500 by a considerable margin.
If we were talking about doing our top 5, bottom 3 this week, the Blue Jays would be on that list, man. 7-3 in their last 10.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, I agree.
7-3 in their last 10. 7-3 at home.
Yep.
I mean, they're kicking tail, and you know what? They're doing it without the guy who said they couldn't do it without him.
Yeah.
So I'm good for the Blue Jays, man. I mean, I like the Blue Jays as a team better without Joey Bats than I like the Blue Jays as a team with it.
Definitely. And I don't think they lost much of an identity. I mean, yeah, Bautista was kind of cocky and arrogant, but to a point that begins to kind of become grating for 162 games in a clubhouse. Move to the Central. The Central is still kind of confusing. The Indians won tonight against Baltimore 4-0, pitched a 2-hitter. They finally cracked double-digit wins. Up until this evening, the AL Central was the only ball club in baseball without a team in double-digit wins. Indians at 10-8. The Twinkies are 8-7, a half game back. The Tigers 9-10. It's an odd. It's been funky up there. I mean, you look at, like I said, the Twins played only 15 games. The White Sox only played 16 games. We have teams that have played 21, have played 19. The weather has been really, really funky. Even last night, we had the Tigers and the Royals with a doubleheader. Move towards the West. Man, the West is a lot of fun. The Astros at 14-7, a half game up on the Angels, who were 13-7. Ohtani got pulled early the other night because of a blister beginning to form. Only made it through 2 innings. A really rough outing for him, which stinks because you and I were both really excited to finally watch him pitch. And I never called you, But I kept saying to my wife, I said, man, he is not on. His command is off. He was missing really far up. He did not look right. That obviously explains why.
I turned that game off after 3 innings.
Yeah, I was the same. It's 2 innings. I'm like, I'm going to bed. It's just nothing impressive. He did DH his next roll, so it looks like the blister and the pull was more of a precaution. That's a good thing.
Oh, wait.
Mariners sitting 2 games above 500. A's, man, I get they're 9-11. They're still a team who, if you're not careful, they can start to sneak some wins from you. I think they could be a 500 team this year. I'm excited about them, especially in the next few years, as well as the White Sox and the Rangers. They just don't have it. I hope they're not going to put Jeff Bannister on the hot seat. Nothing is really there. A club that comes looking for Cole Hamels come trade deadline can probably get him with the right trade set. That's just my assumption early on. We will go ahead and see what the scuttlebutt becomes down the road, but I think Hamels will be moving come deadline time.
I'm going to say this, and this is just a hot take. But if a trade for Cole Hamels includes some big prospects, some pipeline type guys, maybe a pitcher or two, and includes taking Joey Galloway off of the Texas Rangers' hands at this point, I think the Rangers jump.
Yeah, I mean, Joey Gallo, you have Gallo, you have Profar.
Joey Gallo.
Yeah.
The thing is,
neither one has really lived up to the expectations they had.
Gallo has flat out fallen flat.
Yeah.
On the expectations.
Profar is a lot of ebb and flow, but
we're talking about a guy who was at one point the number one pipeline prospect in Major League Baseball, and he just has he's basically been unable to produce at the Major League level. So going into the National League, the Mets are pretty good. I can only imagine they're going to get better now that they don't have to depend on Harvey.
They're pretty good, but there's a team that's surprising all of us, a game and a half behind them.
That's right. That's the Phils, man. I mean, I know. You keep pointing at yourself. You called them the dark horse this year. They're going to be your dark horse. The Phils are doing pretty good. They're 8-2 in their last 10, and I mean, like I said, that's another
at home. 8-1 at home.
That's another team that if we were doing top 5, bottom 3, the Phils would be on my list this week, and the Mets wouldn't.
Hey, you got Rhys Hoskins, still doing well. Luckily, Jordan Baker, one of the tallest umpire in the big leagues, didn't cold cock Kingery in the jaw. I don't know if you saw that play. I'll have to send you the video. But Kingery, I think I want to say it was a throwdown on a steal. And it kind of pulled him forward. So he made the tag, but it kind of pulled his momentum into Jordan Baker's kind of line. So as Baker went to punch out the player, he kind of had to stop because had he gone through, he would have socked Kingery right in the jaw. He kind of stops, like, "What's up?" And Kingery kind of looks around like,
it could have been fun to watch.
He kind of moves on, and Baker finishes the punch out. But it was funny. It was
another
funny.
Team sitting in third place that we didn't expect to be where they are is the Atlanta Braves. They're 11-8, 3 games over 500, only 3 big games out of first place in that division, and a game and a half ahead of who we thought was going to run away with that division.
I don't trust the Braves yet. We've seen so much weirdness between the Chicago series. They're hot and cold. They are the Katy Perry of baseball.
Right.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I apologize.
They're cold. They don't know.
Yes and no.
Right.
I think a 4th place finish could be expected, and that sounds so bad. But right now, with the Mets and the Phillies playing so well, and the Nationals still expected to go ahead and be first in that division, 4th place could still be 500, even a game or two up or below for the Braves. It's a crappy looking finish, but their record might not be indicative of or their spot might not be indicative of their final record.
Right now, the National League East has become exactly the opposite of what we said it was going to be, and has become one of the most competitive divisions in Major League Baseball. Of course, the Marlins round us out. I'm pretty sure their season's done. Hey, they made it 18 games in.
Did theirs begin?
They're 19 games in. 19 games is a good run, guys. Way to go. Finish out the 150 or something, 140 something you got left, and let's just call it a day, okay? In the Central, who the hell are the St. Louis Cardinals? And how are they in first place in the National League Central right now? Because I'm pretty sure when we came here last week, it was the Pirates. But the Pirates have gone on what I can only call an expected 4-6 run in their last 10. That's about who the Pirates are. But let's not forget.
Granted, we're going to discuss it, but the loss of Josh Harrison certainly did blow to that ball club.
I did curse the Pirates last week when I said as long as everyone stays healthy, they should keep this up. Josh Harrison, we'll talk about it.
But the Cardinals that's why people don't like you.
There are a lot of reasons that people don't like me.
But the Cardinals are 8-2.
We didn't have to get that close to the mic to respond. We just lost like half our audience right there.
What do you mean we lost half our audience? They didn't see your face.
Damn it! Why did I laugh at that? Normally I have a quip, and I just God dog it.
It was perfect. That's
continue. Just go.
The Cardinals again are going to be on my list of 5. Man, 8-2 in their last 10, kicking butt in the Central. The Brewers are trying to keep pace with them. They're only half a game back. They've been trying to work into that first place spot really since the beginning of the season when the Pirates kind of took off. But the Pirates are nosediving. But the Cubbies, man. 1 game over 500, a game and a half out of first place. Again, another really tight and sort of exciting division to watch in the National League. 4 teams, definitely 100% in it. In fact, the great thing that I'm seeing around the league is that with the exception of the AL East, there is not a division that doesn't have 4 teams really in the hunt right now. And in the West, the West is up for grabs. Every single team is within 6 games of first place at this point, which I think is probably what we would estimate as the outside possibility of getting into this thing. You go to the West. Of course, the Cincinnati Reds sitting at 3-17. They are managerless at this point. We will get to that. Well, they were managerless up until recently.
And you mentioned the Cubs sitting at 9-8. The problem here, the problem is
a lot of problems.
We say yes, but when you look at this, Zobrist goes on the DL, but he's hitting 326, right? You have guys like Wilson Contreras, 277. The scary thing is Rizzo hitting 150. He's going to come out of the slump. He's down right now. Javi Baez, 290. Chris Bryant, 333. How about Kyle Schwarber saying hello at 283? The thing that has to scare you here is there isn't a single pitcher on this ball club under a 3 ERA. There's only one pitcher, that's John Lester, under a 4. He's at 3.1. You have Kyle Hendricks and Tyler Chatwood at a 4.09 and a 4.60 ERA, respectively. Yu Darvish, an even 6, and the youngster Jose Quintana, 8.16 ERA. That is the problem, is where they have been able to hang their hat is, yes, they had power, but they also had a top 3 or 4 rotation in the major leagues 3 years ago when they made it all the way to the NLCS and to the World Series the year after and won. Man, this has been a team the last 2 years that has been massively struggling to have consistent and dominant pitching.
And the thing that really frightens me right now with the Cubs is that this makes you think even more that the 2016 World Series win was just a fluke.
I wouldn't say a fluke, but I think you had all the right as far as pitching and hitting together at the right time.
Less a fluke and more
the right way. Storm. Yes, exactly. A perfect storm. I agree. Yeah, yes. That I can agree with. A fluke, no. I mean, they're still a very dominant offensive team, but the problem is right now you can put runs up, but if you can't keep more runs from scoring than you put up, you're not going to win a damn ball game.
Wait a minute. Are you saying
yes
that if you don't score more runs than your opponent, that you can't win the game?
That's some solid ESPN reporting right there, boy.
That's right. You sound just like SportsCenter. Congratulations. Heading to my neck of the woods in the National League West, the Diamondbacks still sitting on top. They have slid a little bit. They are 6-4 in their last 10, and they've lost a few of their most recent games. The Rockies are creeping up on them. A game above 500, but only 3 games back.
And the problem is the Rocks are 2-5 at home. Luckily, they're 9-5 away from home. They need to get stronger at Coors Field.
But my question is, what happened to the Dodgers?
Wait for Justin Turner. I get we keep saying it. Things just, for whatever reason, are not. Nothing is clicking. One thing gets fixed, something else is screwy. We're just not seeing the total package right now. But you know what? At the end of the day, not seeing the total package from teams that we thought were going to run away is a beautiful thing for us, because without it, we would have already expected a good chunk of these games to be a good chunk of these divisions to be at least somewhat decided. That is the furthest thing from the truth. Yes, granted, maybe you can say the AL East is decided because the Red Sox are 17-2. I'll tell you right now, Chris, you and I know this game is a game of failure, a game of runs, ebb and flow. They are not going to sit at 17-2 all year. We saw the Red Sox go, or we saw the Astros go through it. We saw the Dodgers and the Indians go through it last year. Let's see what happens when Boston finally begins to hit a little bit of a skid and how well Alex Cora can get him out of it.
Let me ask you a question. I told you,
I'll plead the fifth.
If I told you, if I gave you these numbers, 5 games started, an ERA.
Didn't we do this last week?
Yes, just listen. 5 starts, an ERA of 2.45, 33 innings pitched in 5 games.
Wow.
A whip under 1. A strikeouts per 9 of 9.5, and a strikeouts to walk ratio of 11.67. How many wins would you expect that pitcher to have in 5 games?
At least 3.
Those are Clayton Kershaw's numbers, and he has 1.
Wow.
1 win, 3 losses, 1 no decision.
Now, granted, I was going to say those sound like either Kershaw, Kluber, Sale, or Scherzer numbers, but that's that.
And I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you right now that his strikeouts per 9, his WHIP, and his ERA are in line with what his numbers were for the season last year when he finished second in the Cy Young voting and had 18 wins. There is a run support problem in Los Angeles.
Agreed. Yes.
There is a run support problem in San Francisco. San Francisco has scored 1 run or fewer in 60% of their games this year. There is a runs, and the pitching that they have been getting, they've been losing these games by a run or 2. So the pitching they've been getting with all of their pitchers on the DL, there is a run support problem in the National League West right now, and it is severely affecting the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants. And I can only imagine that as this season wears on, that's going to be more difficult to overcome than easier. Now, I get what you're saying about wait for Josh Turner, but if Turner is the heart and soul of the run support for this team,
I just want to say, unless the Dodgers just signed a country music star with one hell of a deep voice, it'd be Justin Turner.
Guy, you know what I mean. Gosh, Justin, there's too many J names on this dang team.
I mean, what is he going to lock the door and turn the lights down low? Like, what the hell's going to happen in the clubhouse when he comes back?
Hey, that's a darn good song, all right? But the Giants are sitting at 8-11, which is, I think, better than anybody could possibly give them credit for at this point. They're 4-6 in their last 10. I'm enjoying it. Brandon Belt just hit a 2-run shot to take a 2-1 lead over the Angels, who they absolutely annihilated last night. And then then there's the Friars, who are in basically the same place, 8-13. They got a couple more losses than the Giants do based on some rainouts that happened in San Francisco. But realistically, and I know this is going to sound petty, but I think 8-13 is better than we imagined the Padres being at this point. I think probably 5 or 6 wins is where we had them. And that ratio, that 250 to, maybe 300 win ratio is really where I think they're going to sit at for the rest of the year. But they're playing better than the Marlins and the Reds and the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned we saw some things that kind of made us scratch our heads. We thought there was going to be a longer term, I think, struggle. But yeah, right now they're playing
500 baseball in their last 10 games.
I mean, at least halfway decent. I mean, let's be honest, man. I mean, you and I said this from the get-go. The big signing of the year was Hosmer.
Right.
Hosmer was not going to make them a plus 500 team, and was certainly not going to make them a playoff contender. So no, I it's fine for what they've done. It's not going to be enough to make them anything worth mentioning in the West.
Right. Right.
Coming back this way, definitely back into my neck of the woods. Kevin Kiermaier, all-star center fielder, likely would have been one of maybe 2 of the all-star nods from the Rays. Probably either going to be him or Chris Archer, because we all know one all-star is required to be from every ball club. He is unfortunately going about 12 to 13 weeks because of a thumb injury. This is a second year in a row we've seen him come out. Obviously, last year we had, right after the Trout injury, he came out. I think it was a leg injury because of him going into first base. So they will bring in Chi-Wei Hugh, has been recalled from AAA to take his spot on the active roster. It's a pitcher. But unfortunately, Kevin Kiermaier out for quite a bit. Tears a ligament in the thumb, doing what? Sliding into second base. Who does that sound like last year? Mike Trout. I'm going to say this in a way that if you're going to get mad, I get it. If you're a Rays fan, feel free to tweet the hate at OO Left Field on Twitter, Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. We are brought to you by thegruelingtruth.net, at Grueling Truth on Facebook or Legends Speak. Be sure to check out. We are just about 4 days away from the NFL draft. A lot of good stuff there. Be sure to check out The Grueling Truth for all your spring football and college, as well as the NFL draft, boxing, and much more. The Kevin Kiermaier injury is unfortunate, but it doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot, Chris. The Rays are basically right on the bottom, along with the Orioles in the American League East. The game difference is, by and large, negligible between the two. They're pretty much going to trade blows for who's going to be fourth and who's going to be fifth in that division. Yes, it hurts that Kiermaier is out because of the thumb injury. But it's one of those things where, is it going to have a long-term effect on this ball club this year? No. Their fate was pretty much sealed at the beginning of the year when the J.D. Martinez trade happened. We thought, especially when the Stanton trade happened, that hasn't quite come to the same amount of fruition. But there, and we talked about it with Dwayne's stats about a month ago. They made the right moves to move guys like Longoria to your Giants, Souza Jr. to the Diamondbacks. It's just not, they didn't resign Logan Morrison, Corey Dickerson to the Twins and Pirates respectively. This is a team who knows they are not going to be competitive this year. So yes, while it is unfortunate that Kiermaier is out, it's not going to have any effect on what happens with that ball club and their future as far as 2018 is concerned to me.
No, I completely agree. Does it hurt as a fan of the team? Absolutely. I think it does.
He's a highlight reel out there. He's one of the best center fielders, at least in the American League, probably top 3 to 5 in the game.
It's definitely going to hurt, but he'll be back probably at the break, maybe even before the break. And coming back is going to have about the same effect on this team as him being gone. Are they going to win a few more games? Sure. Is it going to matter? No, I don't think it will. And I think that's where we sit with Kevin Kiermaier. It sucks. I'm glad that his surgery was successful. I'm glad that he's going to come back and he's going to continue to play baseball. I'm glad that things are going well for his recovery. But I'm not hopeful that this is going to be – that his return is going to be the signaling of some turnaround for the Tampa Bay Rays.
And he wasn't having a great year anyway. 163, 250, 233 slash line. Just was not a great start of the year for him. Moving on to a scarier story, but hopefully one that, at least from all accounts we have heard, Chris, should have a happier ending.
Hopefully.
Yes. Everything at least is somewhat positive so far. Chicago White Sox right-hander Danny Farquhar suffered a brain hemorrhage Friday night, fainted in the dugout during Friday's game against the Astros, and is in critical condition, according to sources from the White Sox. The 31-year-old suffered a ruptured aneurysm that caused the brain to bleed. He is stable, but remains in the neurosurgical intensive care unit at Rush University Medical Center. There is nothing funny about this. There is no joke that Chris and I would make. Only thing that will come from the mouths of Chris and myself and everybody here at the Grueling Truth Network is Danny, get better. Regardless of what it can happen to your career, get yourself well. Our thoughts and prayers go to his family, the team, the doctors, that they are able to get him stable and get his brain clean of whatever, stuff is in there to get him back onto a road to be just a normal person in society. The rest of it, hey, if he gets to come back and pitch, beautiful, amazing, it's a blessing. But if not, just having him able to walk around and be, a person among us, be just as good. So from all of us to you, a tip of the cap, and get well, Danny.
And obviously this is a difficult story to talk about. It's a difficult story to really, like you said, there's nothing funny about this. There's no jokes to be made. One thing that I would say, when something happens like this on a national recognition level, it's a good opportunity to go ahead and bring some light to this subject, the subject of brain aneurysms, which is a lot more frightening than people really understand and a lot more common than I think people know. So I'm going to take this opportunity. I know I didn't discuss this with you prior, but I'm going to take this opportunity just to give you a couple of sort of frightening statistics about brain aneurysm in the United States, and maybe encourage you to see if your own medical insurance offers, CT scans and things like that to look for these aneurysms. An estimated 6 million people in the United States have an unruptured brain aneurysm. That is 1 in 50. The annual rate of rupture is about 8 to 10 per 100,000, or about 30,000 people in the United States suffer a brain aneurysm rupture. Ruptured brain aneurysms are fatal in about 40% of cases. There's a brain aneurysm rupturing every 18 minutes in the United States. Of those who survive, about 66% suffer some permanent neurological deficit. And here's where it really starts to affect me and you and people of our generation, is that brain aneurysms are most prevalent in people ages 35 to 60, though they can occur in children. But the median age when aneurysmal hemorrhagic stroke occurs, that is a ruptured hemorrhage to the brain a hemorrhage to the brain and a stroke caused by a ruptured aneurysm, is 50 years old, and there are no warning signs. So I encourage you to, if your insurance offers it, please go and just get checked. Let your doctor know that you know the statistics on aneurysm in the United States, and that you want to at least be cleared, because it can strike it at any time.
Remember, and I'm not being funny here, but Bret Michaels, it was during, I think, the Tony Awards. They brought like one of the set doors down, and it hit him in the head and caused a hemorrhage. And I remember him saying he was sitting at home, and he said he felt like somebody had shot him in the back of the head, and it ruptured. Thankfully, he was able to survive it. Yeah, it is certainly nothing to, if there is ever a concern, why do you guys think that all professional sports coaches, as officials, we are so cognizant of head injuries? There is a lot that can happen because of them, and a lot that can be prevented by being aware of when they're happening. So again, Danny, get well soon. All of our thoughts and prayers we send out to you and the White Sox team for your speedy recovery. Chris, moving on, we mentioned this as we went through our breakdowns. You're a jerk. You jinxed the Pirates. Josh Harrison out 6 weeks with a fractured hand. And you said this, and you're exactly right. It's a crapshoot. Luckily, the same damn injury didn't take Freddie Freeman out again from the Braves this year. I believe the same thing happened to him last year, which is why Matt Adams was brought in. Freeman hit on the wrist. He's okay. Josh Harrison hit.
Scary moment for the Braves, though.
Yep. And Harrison, unfortunately, goes out. Fractured his fifth metacarpal in his left hand when he was hit by a fastball. Man, Harrison, he's not a power guy, but hey, hitting 263 with a 328 on base, 351 slugging, had a homer, a pair of doubles, and had snagged a bag in his first 14 games. It hurts. I'm not saying he's on to a Hall of Fame year, but hey, if there's a manager that can make the best out of what he's getting, I think you and I can both agree it is going to be Clint Hurdle.
Right. I'm just going to go ahead and apologize right now.
As well you should, sir.
For having cursed the Pirates, apparently. Yar. You shouldn't have taken me gold. But it's one of those things. It's just it's one of those things that happens in baseball. A guy crowds the plate, especially a guy like Josh Harrison, who loves to turn on that inside pitch. He loves to get up close. And unfortunately, one caught him just right, broke that that left hand, that bottom swinging hand for him, that fifth metacarpal, which is, for those of you who don't know, is the one that attaches your pinky to your wrist. It's a painful injury.
So what you're saying is he will not be getting his black belt on a karate chop anytime soon?
No, I wouldn't want to chop anything with that. That would, no.
And you mentioned this, and you're right. And I see it in high school ball all the time. The players don't use the majority of the box. Players crowd the plate excessively. It's why a lot of high school players, at least that I see, can't recognize the inside pitch. I think the inside pitch is really, really inside, even when it's over top of the plate.
Right.
And we're seeing, it's what we're seeing now, in the big
I've
leagues.
That guys are standing in the box with their toes on the white line.
Yeah.
That's guys, give yourself some dirt.
Yeah.
I mean, give yourself an inch or two of dirt. I mean, that's still close for me. When I played ball, my whole life when I played ball, I tried to center myself, in and out in the box as much as possible. And then maybe I tried to bring my front foot even with the front of the plate.
Right.
So I was back in the box.
I would love to actually see what the numbers are as it relates to the number of outside corner strikes being called in relation to inside corner strikes, because there has to be a reason why these guys are crowding just that much.
Well, it's another one of those things where the only way, these guys are trying to pull everything that they can, and it's happening in the big leagues too. Guys are trying to get close to the plate so that they can swing at those outside pitches and still manage to put them wherever they want. Because, like I said, the unwritten rule of baseball is if you hit a pitch where it's thrown, and if they throw it to you outside, you hit it the other way. That's just how it works. Well, you can pull an inside pitch, but you got to be real close to the plate when you do it.
Right.
Otherwise, it just doesn't work. So I would like to know, while we're talking about wanting to know numbers and statistics and stuff, I want to know what the statistic is for shortest season as a big league manager, because I think Bryan Price may have just broken it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, 9 years ago, back to my neck of the woods, 9 years ago, Bryan Price walked away from the Arizona Diamondbacks organization because they fired Bob Melvin 29 games into the season. And he said that he thought that was just not a big enough sample size for them to have made that decision. He felt like they had wronged him, so he walked away. Now here we are, and 17 games into the 2018 season, Price gets the axe from a then 2-15 Reds organization.
On top of that, a negative 46 run differential.
Right.
Let that sink in. Some of the guys that I know, the umpires I know, have said Bryan it was one of the best and most fair managers in the game. We saw him get hot-headed. We saw him get loud, but they said, he's fair. He's going to stand behind his guys, but he was a good manager who, normally you could give a little bit of leeway to, because he understood how the game was meant to be taken care of. It's the Reds are a dumpster fire right now. Jim Riggleman, who the last time I remember him being a manager was with the Nationals, 8-10 years ago. We know that the Reds hired John Farrell in a scouting capacity this year. Let's keep in mind that the Reds also fired their pitching coach, which is Mack Jenkins, along with Bryan Price. Man, I told you this. I told you this when it happened. To me, this was the same thing as when the Braves fired Freddie Gonzalez a couple of years ago. They didn't give him a damn thing to work with. He was on the outs. There was no way they were going to be competitive this year. And you know what? Well, we'll just figure it out. Well, you know what? You weren't going to figure it out. and you didn't give Bryan Price anything to really work with, and then you go ahead and kick him out because, well, that's just what we do. No, what you should be doing is giving him a damn team that can actually be competitive in Major League Baseball.
I'm gonna say this: if you fired Bryan Price in 2015, his second year as a Reds manager, when the Reds finished 64-98, I'd have been like, okay, 98 losses, that's bad, that's a big deal. But you said, well, it's not Bryan Price's fault. And then 2016, they finished 68-94. And again, they say it's not Bryan Price's fault. We're going to bring him back. And then last year, they again finished 68-94.
And pick up his option.
And pick up Bryan Price's option, saying it's not his fault that we're losing.
Votto, an MVP candidate, easily could have been the MVP winner.
17 games into the following season, immediately after you pick up his option and say it's not his fault, 17 games into the next season, you let him go. And right now, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I get it. 2 wins in, 17 games? It's horrible. You can't fire the players. You got to fire the manager. But you know what? At the end of the day, we've already seen that they've won 1 game since the firing earlier this week. It's not going to make a damn bit of difference. The Reds are going to be likely, again, the worst team in the big leagues. And it was never an issue with Bryan Price. It was an issue that this team just could never seem to get things going in a way that it needed to. Tip of the cap to him. I'm sure he will find a place next year. I'm interested to see who the Reds will look for next year. As low as they are in the standings, I would think a new manager like what we've seen with Kapler and Cora and Boone.
Yeah, I agree. But I know we got to wrap up. I know this show's gone a little bit longer than we expected it to go. We're about an hour and 20 something minutes now.
Woo.
Almost an hour and a half.
That's why we love y'all.
But I just wanted to say I'm sick and tired of veteran players whining about competitive play. Houston Astros pitcher Justin Verlander is now offended by the over-aggressive play of the Chicago White Sox and specifically infielder Tim Anderson in their 10-0 win on Friday. Anderson celebrated after singling to break up Verlander's quote-unquote no-hitter in the 5th inning, which we know my opinion on that.
Oh, don't break up the no-no in the 5th.
You don't have a no-hitter in the 5th inning. I'm sorry. That's just not how no-hitters work. And then he stole on a 3-0 count. And Verlander says he steals on 3-0, quote, he steals on 3-0 in a 5-0 game. That's probably not great baseball. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. But he celebrated that, though. And it's like, hey, I'm not worried about you right now. It's 5-0. I'm giving a high leg kick. I know you can steal. If I don't want you to steal, I'll be a little bit more aware of you. But I'm trying to get this guy out at the plate, end quote.
Well, good. Then get your guy out and just shut up.
But he says he's offended by that aggressive play. In a 5-0 game in the 5th inning, if you're not playing aggressively, then I think that you don't deserve to be playing Major League Baseball.
I couldn't agree with you more. Guys, plenty of stuff to get to in the coming weeks. Let's not forget Anthony Rizzo's comments about should the season be shortened? That and plenty more coming up in the next couple weeks on Out of Left Field.
We're going to need to dedicate about a half an hour of the show to that.
Yeah, it will be a show that is not filled with too many topics, but we will have plenty of thoughts on that. We are already hashing them out. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us again this weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy some baseball. Say hey to your family. Say hey to your kids. Say hello from Chris and I here at the show. Love that you listen every week. Enjoy Out of Left Field. Enjoy the NFL Draft if it so suits your fancy. Be sure to check out The Grueling Truth on Twitter at Grueling Truth and thegruelingtruth.net, as well as at OO Left Field on Twitter, our show page, and Out of Left Field with Chris and Graham on Facebook. Guys, we appreciate you being here. For all of us here, for Chris, myself, have a great week. We'll see you back here on Out of Left Field.